Inspiring interviews with today's top landlords. This is the Rental Income Podcast. And now, Dan Lane.
Grant, why did you start buying rental properties?
I started buying rental properties because I had a great union job, a great W-2 job, but it was very demanding on my time. I was gone a lot. So once I started having kids, I was married and had a couple kids. I wanted to find a way to break myself free of that. So I started looking into ways to do that, and rental properties was the ticket out of my job.
On the podcast today, we're going to figure out how Grant was able to generate enough rental income to leave his job. We'll talk about how a line of credit helped him grow his portfolio. We'll walk through some of his deals, take a look at his portfolio, and figure out how long it took him from the time he bought his first rental until he put in his notice. Joining us on the show today from Lincoln, Nebraska is Francke. We'll take a quick break to thank our sponsors. We'll come right back and we'll talk to Grant. It's a lot of work to find a really good rental property. And when you actually find that property, you want to make sure you're working with a lender that can get that loan closed. The lender that I recommend is Chaley Ridge from Ridge Lending Group. She's a nationwide lender, and her specialty is helping investors finance rental properties. She has a ton of loan programs, and she can find something customized to you for your situation. If you want to find out more or you're ready to get started today, just go to ridgelendinggroup.com. That's RIDGE lendinggroup.com. NMLS 42056.
Rental Income Podcast.
Grant, the idea of buying enough rental properties and generating enough rental income to leave your job sounds like a great plan, but when you actually break it down and run the numbers, it can pretty quickly become overwhelming. So when you first got the idea, did you get overwhelmed at first?
Yeah, it really did in the beginning. It was almost something that I thought I could attain in 10 to 15 years. But once I started getting the education down, and really it was a mindset shift for me from going to, well, I'll just slowly do this, to putting everything in my being behind finding cash flowing properties to get me out of my W-2 job.
So that was your constant thought. Like you were just thinking every day, what can I do to grow my portfolio?
Yes, there was nothing else in my mind. I would driving to work, to and from work, I was listening to podcasts. At breaks at work, I was reading books. It consumed me. And like I said, it was a mindset shift of, I could do this to I am going to do this.
Yeah, I love it.
This is what is going to happen.
How long did it take you from the time that you bought your first, actually maybe from the time that you first started learning about rentals until you bought your first rental, and then when you bought your first rental to when you actually left your job?
Yeah, so it was the end of 2015. I kind of got the bug. I've always been somewhat handy, so I was kind of searching around. So 2015, and then 2016, we bought our first duplex. And then after that, we just kind of kept snowballing everything, putting everything back into the properties. And by the end of 2019, I was able to leave my job.
So it was 3 years from the time you bought that first duplex until you actually left your job. So did it almost seem like you had this secret that like you had kind of figured out that if you had enough rental income or bought enough properties and had enough rental income, you could leave your job? Like, did it almost feel like you kind of cracked the code? Yeah,
for real. So we bought the first one, and my wife's an accountant, so she's really good with Excel and stuff. Uh-huh. We sat down and made a spreadsheet, and was like, if we do this so many more times, like that, the math adds up. Like I will have enough income to where we could leave the W-2 job, and I could be more of a dad and a husband that I want to be.
How many properties did you need?
So it was more of a cash flow amount. So what I did was, like I said, it was a really good union job, but I was able to, once we made that shift of this is what we're going to do, I went to the lowest paying job that I could there. Mm-hmm. And we sat at that, and I was like, I need this base amount per month. All right. And that so we factored in, the tax benefits of real estate and what taxes I was paying on my W-2 job. So we were shooting for somewhere north of $3,000 a month.
Okay. And you basically figured out, okay, like if I'm going to make a certain amount per door, I need this many doors.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
What were you buying? Like you mentioned your first property was a duplex. Did you buy all duplexes or did you buy different types of properties?
We bought different types of properties. At that stage, the biggest we went was a duplex. So by the time I left my job, we had seven duplexes and 5 single family houses. And the single family houses kind of came off of one of those duplex deals with the seller that just things really went well with, and he had some more properties he wanted to get rid of.
Were there certain types of neighborhoods that you were targeting?
So this was all in one like smaller town. So I'm in southeast Nebraska, so it's a town that's south of Lincoln, and it's wasn't really tapped into for the rental market, but it's very much a renter's town.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just picking up cash flowing properties that I could. They probably wouldn't be some of the stuff I would target now, but they were cash flowing, and that was my main focus.
Did you have like a price point that you were trying to buy in and like an average rent amount?
Yeah. So the average duplex at that time was going for like 90 to 120 for that town. We would buy that. They would typically be renting for, they'd be renting for like $500 a month.
Okay.
I'd go in and sorry, go ahead.
That's total 120,000. And that's for both sides of the duplex.
Both sides of the duplex. Yep.
Okay. And so you would get about $1,000 a month rent for the entire duplex.
Right. That was at purchase. So we would go in and fix the units up because they would be value add deals where they need some love and care. And we were able to get those rents, all the way up now. Some of those duplexes that we still have, we're getting $2,200 a month total of rent out of those.
And when you quit your job, did you keep building your portfolio? Like once you hit that 3,000, you left your job and then you just kept on buying.
Yeah, we did. And I kind of switched into like a controlled growth at that time. Like it wasn't so much of a race against time. So we're focused on like really good underwriting, finding good long-term deals that we want to hold for 10, 20 years. And just the controlled growth is what I kind of switched to.
All right. Well, let's kind of walk through how you did this. So you found that duplex, that first property you bought. How did you find it?
That was on the Craigslist. So it was an older gentleman that he was actually a former railroader as well, which is what my union job was. So we found it on Craigslist, called him up, and we went down and toured it with him, and things went really well. Yeah, so we were able to close the deal, and that one we bought for $92,000.
And then that was was it rented when you bought it?
It was rented, and it was cash flowing at the time. So I was still kind of new to the deal. So I was like, I'm just going to let the tenants be. They're going to pay rent, and I'm going to cash flow for a while. And then as the tenant moved out, we went in and completely redid that side. He was paying $550 a month in rent. And then after redoing it, we were able to get $850 a month.
Nice.
Right after redoing it. And now, like I said, with appreciation and rent growth, that's up over 1,000.
All right. So you got that property. Did you use like just a regular down payment, a 25% down payment, or whatever?
So that was just a 30-year mortgage, 25% down.
Okay.
So it's all locked in for 30 years.
All right. So you got that property. You have some cash flow. You're catching the real estate bug. You're ready to keep going. What was your next property?
So my next deal was with the same seller. Like I said, I'm like a big relationship guy. We had a really good relationship with him. As I was going through the deal with him, that first one, I was kind of snooping around on the assessor site and saw that he had 5 other single family homes in the town that were obviously rentals. And I said, hey, if you ever want to sell these, I'd be open to having that discussion. And he said, well, let's get through this first deal first and see how this goes. Okay. So he called me later and he's like, hey, I'd be open to selling those 5 single family homes. And I was like, oh, that's great. I just put all my capital down as a down payment on that duplex. So I was like, I would kind of need you to help me sell or finance these to make the deal work. So like I said, because it was a good relationship, we were able to get those 5 single families in a package deal, seller finance through him.
That's really powerful. I mean, to think that it's one relationship. You found someone looking to sell their duplex. You did what you said you were going to do. You made him happy, and now he's willing to sell you the rest of his properties. I think that's really awesome.
Yeah, it was really set us off. And, it started our snowball accumulation.
Yeah.
It started helping that out.
Did he sell or finance the whole thing? Did you have to come up with any down payment at all?
Yeah, we put 10% down.
Okay.
I think it's probably, it was about $40,000 we put down.
All right. So you put 10% down, and then did he come up with the down payment, or did he finance the rest of it?
So he had it all, he had them all paid off. So
Okay.
he was the bank in the transaction. So he held the note on the properties. We set the interest rate, for, respectable interest rate. And then we would just pay him every month. So the way I was able to sell it on him is he wanted to go to Florida. He was retired. He was like, I like the cash flow, but I just don't like messing with the tenants and stuff. I was like, look, you're still going to get your money.
Right.
It's just going to come from me every month instead of the tenants.
Did you have a certain period of time? Like a lot of times when people do seller financing, they have like a 5-year balloon. So within 5 years, you got to refi it. Did you do something like that, or was it a 30-year fixed loan?
Yeah, it was a 5-year balloon.
Okay.
So we had 5 years to come up to, at the end of those 5 years, I'd refinance with the bank.
And your thinking was in 5 years, either the property will appreciate, so you'll have that other 10% in equity kind of created by the market, or worst case, you'd have to come up with extra cash. Is that kind of
Correct.
what you were thinking?
Yep.
Yeah.
And then so what happened was a couple of years later, he was just like every other real estate investor. He still had the bug.
Mm-hmm.
He saw a property that he wanted to buy, and he called me. He's like, "Hey, is there any way, we could wrap this seller financing deal up if you go to a bank and get them appraised and refinance out?" So I approached our bank. They did appraisals on them. And due to the work we had done on the properties, we were able to get them to all 5 appraise out to the point where 2 of them were paid off after the refinance.
Wow. So, all right. So you started off with 5 mortgages, and now you've got 3 mortgages.
3 mortgages, yep.
Wow.
And 2 of them were paid off. So then
Incredible.
those other 3 were refinanced into 30-year fixed debt.
Wow. That's awesome. Okay. So now you've got the 5 single families, you've got the duplex. How do you keep growing from here? Or I guess, like, how close were you to your $3,000 goal at this point?
We weren't very close. I'd say we were maybe halfway.
Okay.
And then in order for us to keep growing, the nice thing about those 2 paid off properties is we were able to get a line of credit against them.
Ooh, okay.
So we went to our bank, said, "Hey, we've got these 2 properties that are debt free. They're cash flowing. Here's the appraisals that you guys just gave us on them. They're worth this much in the market. We'd like to get a line of credit against the properties."
Awesome. So now you got a line of credit. You can go out there and make cash offers. Is that what you were thinking?
Yep, cash offers and those deals where you can, what's called the BRRRR method now, where you can buy them, rehab them, refinance, and then just keep that ball rolling.
Awesome. Okay, so you're using the line of credit to buy the property and fix it up, and then once you fix it up, you would refi it to a 30-year loan and get the money back to pay off your line of credit?
Yep. Or if it wasn't a deal that we could do all cash, we would just take so it was kind of a little bit slower method, but we take the line of credit to use as the down payment on the new properties, and then just take the cash flow from those properties and our older properties to just pay off that line of credit as fast as possible.
I love
to
it.
get that capital back.
I love it. That is so awesome. All right. So then it sounds like your next couple of properties were BRRRRs.
Yes. Yep.
And have you used the BRRRR strategy from this point forward on every property you've bought? Is that kind of what you're doing today?
Yeah, it's not a really fast BRRRR. It's kind of, I guess, a slow BRRRR. We'll buy. Now we're buying like 8 plexes. So we'll buy something that's value add, and then as tenants move out, we renovate the units. And then once we get enough of that done, we'll go ahead and refinance. Well, back when interest rates were refinanceable, we would refinance out of those.
So, all right. So you had a down payment for the first property. You had a 10% down payment for those 5 single families. Have you had to put much money into building out your portfolio since then?
Yeah, we have. We continued to put in, especially in those beginning days. Like I said, my entire goal was to leave the railroad.
Yeah.
And we knew that real estate was the asset class we wanted to be into. So we did what some people would say is unspeakable, and we cashed out my 401k to just make sure we could get to those properties.
Yeah. And then you use that 401k money for down payments or fixing. Yep. Okay. Yep. So what does your portfolio look like today?
Right now we're at about 104 units.
Wow.
And it's just over $8 million of assets under
management. Incredible. And that's like in not very much time. So you must have been like, after you left your job, like you must have gotten much more aggressive.
Yeah, we got aggressive, and people, that we have known, kind of saw how we were doing it and saw we were doing things right. So we do have some equity partners in some of our deals now, some of the larger apartment buildings.
So
and when I say larger, I mean,
how does that work?
Units. Yeah, you bet. So let's say it's a package deal of 4 fourplexes, and it's about $1 million purchase price. Mm-hmm. So what will happen is, for the down payment, it's, for rough numbers, let's say it's $200,000 down payment. They'll come up with 70% of it. We come up with 30% of it. And then we're 50-50 partners because I find the deal and operate and run it.
So you're putting a 30% down payment?
I'm putting in for 30% of the down payment.
Okay.
For 70% of the down payment.
So on $1 million deal, like, so say it's like a $200,000 down payment, you would put in 30% of that. Your partners would put in 70% of that.
Correct. Yep.
And then you're equal owners on the property.
Yep. Then we're 50-50 for profits.
And so how do you split the cash flow on that? It's like, so you have multiple partners in each deal?
It's one group of partners, but there's multiple partners within that. Yeah.
And do you distribute the cash flow every month, or do you let it build up for a few months and then pay out the money to people?
We do it quarterly.
Okay.
So every quarter we'll do distributions.
How did you find your partners?
It was just a mutual friendship that we had. They had some capital they wanted to deploy into the asset class, and we were looking to scale aggressively. So it was just a really good match.
And you manage everything, right?
Correct. Yep. We self-manage all 104 units. That was another part of a decision I made in the beginning was, it's going to be a pain to manage these properties, but that's, 8 to 10% of my rents not going out the door to a third-party manager. So
let's walk through how you manage everything, because with 108 tenants, I mean, that's a lot of moving parts. Like, do you have any help, or are you doing everything yourself?
Yeah, we do have some help. So about a year and a half ago, we brought on a full-time VA. And so she's been remarkable. It's been a huge change for us. She handles all tenant communications.
Okay.
So from screening to leasing, renewals, maintenance requests, all that stuff goes to her. And we have a really good system set up with our property management softwares. So she can handle all that stuff without me being involved in the day-to-day.
What property management software do you use?
We use Buildium for the main property management, and then we just switched over to Property Meld for the maintenance request.
So
we really enjoyed that.
If a tenant has a leaking faucet, would they just open a ticket on the software and let the virtual assistant know? And then
they would open up a Property Meld, and you can go in there and take a picture of it. It goes straight to my VA. And then from there, we move it to the plumber or the handyman or whoever we need to assign it to. And
she'll contact the plumber or the handyman or whatever. Like she'll know who to send the trouble to.
Yep, you bet. So we built kind of like a big tree out, of when we have this issue, this is who we go to, and so she knows the whole process of that.
And what about collecting rent? Is that all online?
Yep, all online through Buildium. That's kind of a non-starter for us. Rent collection needs to be online. It's too much can slip through the cracks if you're cashing checks
Sure.
every month.
And every tenant pays online. That there's not any holdouts that want to pay another way.
Yeah, you have some, and we kind of slowly walked them through it. We're like, all right, after this renewal, I don't want to check from you anymore. I can get you set up for free online. So,
what about showings? Like, so when you have a turnover and you've got to show a property, how do you do that with your virtual assistant not being local? Like, how do you do showings?
Yeah, so that's a feature through Buildium that we use. It's called Tenant Turner. So what it is there's a lockbox on the door of each of our vacant units, and there's a key inside to get in the unit. After a tenant expressed interest, we send them a link to this Tenant Turner where they fill out their information, and we get to pre-screen them before they can even apply for a showing. And then it's just self-showing. So we started during COVID for COVID reasons, but we really enjoyed it, and the tenants like it as well. But they are able to choose their own time to go take a look. They show up to the property, enter the code in the lockbox, and walk around themselves.
So it sounds like there's not much for you to do. It sounds like you've really automated and outsourced most of the management.
Yeah, most of the management. I'm still involved, daily with Kay. We're always talking and texting of what's going on, but the actual physical day-to-day has been outsourced and systematized to where it doesn't slow me down much anymore.
So that frees you up to find more deals, or, I guess just kind of supervising to make sure everything's getting done.
Yeah, just at a much higher level. So I'm kind of working, on the business instead of in it.
Yeah.
So we're trying to find deals and, building new systems and that sort of stuff.
If you want to learn more about Grant's journey to financial freedom, he actually wrote a book about it. It's on Amazon. It's called The Unlikely Investor. He talks about finding deals, financing them, and how he's managing his properties. If you want to check it out, I've got a link to it on my website. You can find it at rentalincomepodcast.com/episode 473. I'd like to thank Chately Ridge from Ridge Lending Group for sponsoring today's episode. If you're looking to buy a rental property, whether you're just getting started or you want to add to your portfolio, reach out to Chately. She has a ton of different loan programs, and she can find something that works for you in your situation. And if you mention Rental Income Podcast, she will credit you back $250 at closing. Thank you so much for checking out the podcast today. If you're new here, make sure you hit the follow button and you'll get notified every single Tuesday when I put out a new episode. Thank you so much for supporting the show. I will talk to you next Tuesday. My name is Dan Lane, and this has been the Rental Income Podcast.